Hello, creatives, community, and kind folks. Welcome to RPG with DBJ, and welcome to our week of discussing Daggerheart, the tabletop role-playing game. Today, we're going to move to yet another possible outcome, failure with hope. And it's just a generalization, but we're going to talk about how Daggerheart, in my opinion, is an extremely stealthy game where it has this hard shell of Dungeons and Dragons-esque materials, and yet I'm going to say about 70% of that is on the player side, mechanics and features and options, and yet on the game master side, it's very narrative and how it utilizes this idea of success and failure that's independent from hope and fear and allows us to tell many great stories with it. I'm very impressed by this game. And we're going to go through it. We're going to focus on how gameplay is done. Combat, damage, how much hope and fear can you have, and how do you have a game without an initiative system? So grab your snacks, put your feet up, bring your brilliance as always, and let's get into it. Again, hello everyone. Thank you very much for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. Glad to have you here. You're quite all right. I don't have to bring brilliance. Brilliance brings me. I just figured you said it with that kind of attitude. You did put an exclamation point on the end of that, so I love it, Drew. Daggerheart. Daggerheart is a fantasy tabletop role-playing game. And maybe at the end, maybe towards the end, I'll show you how Daggerheart actually doesn't have a setting, which I thought it did. I honestly, hey Spook, what's going on? Yeah, I really thought Daggerheart was going to have a Critical Role Darrington Press specific setting. And it doesn't. And there's personal note, I'm not really a fan of 37 different ancestries, which is what they call their species or races. I'm not really a fan of the hodgepodge, but you'll see later on. Yeah, I will do it. You'll see it later at the end of the session how that's not exactly what Daggerheart is about. Because I thought it was going to be a bunch of furries, you know what I mean? You role play humans, but they're not human. They have rabbit ears or something, or a cat's tail, or whatever the case might be, and stuff. And you can play it like that, but it doesn't have to be soft and fuzzy. So I'm going to share with you. This is only going to be about 3 or 4 pages of material that really, really tells you what this game is about. And I kind of like it. Okay, so what we're looking at now is the SRD of Daggerheart. It's the free version of the game. It's 135 pages, strips out all of the fluff, and only gives you, instead of having 18 different options, it does take a lot of the GM options away. Gives you a truncated adversaries, basically your monsters, your bad guys. It truncates that down quite a bit. So here we have the flow of the game. And this game does not have a traditional initiative system, but it very much is narrative based. And I'm going to show you a couple of best practices that for your traditional Dungeons and Dragons players are going to be scratching their heads wait, what? I don't get it. All right, so Daggerheart is a conversation right here with the flow of the game. The GM describes fictional scenarios involving the PCs and the players take turns describing how their characters react. This is a traditional part of Dungeons and Dragons, right? Game Master describes the situation, players describe, interact with that environment, that fiction. Game Master then reassesses, and it goes back and forth, right? Basically it's we walk through the wood, or Game Master says, it's a dark wood, you're on a trail, you're going ahead. Hey, I'd like to find an open space and make camp, blah, blah, blah. Okay, Game Master then describes something, players describe something. Game Master says something, players say something, and it goes back and forth. Boop, 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 pickleball. The goal of every person at the table is to build upon everyone else's ideas and collaboratively tell a satisfying story. The system facilitates this collaborative process. All right, so we get that part, but how do you do it? So on the very left, we have player principles and best practices. Rules for players. I love it. Rules for the players. Be a fan of your character and their journey. Spotlight your friends. Address the characters and address the players. So this one doesn't necessarily mean you have to do it in character, like you don't have to be an actor or anything. But where it says address the characters and address the players, address the characters, meaning like if a character heals your character, acknowledge that the character did that thing for you. And maybe you might even have a personality change or a shift, or you didn't believe in their religion of the 12 gods or something, but now you do, or whatever. And then address the players. Basically acknowledge that they're playing in the game. Don't ignore anybody. Build the world together. Play to find out what happens. And this is the part that's going to really throw people off in this game, that it works best if the game master holds on, which is this one, hold on gently. Play to find out. Because of the pass, fail, or succeed, fail combination, hope and fear, that it's very quickly things can grow out of control for the player and the GM. And if you hold on too tightly, it's going to be like squeezing peanut butter in your fingers, and it'll scrape against your expectations. But if you hold on lightly, like Blades in the Dark has the heist mechanic, where you have a plan for the heist, but because you have mixed success, complications, our heroes, our main protagonists, complications will start to stack against them, and they have to deal with more and more complications. Then as the game master, you don't have to come up with those initially. I mean, you may have them in the back of your head, but you don't need to come up with them immediately. The dice will start creating those complications. That's where the fear part comes in. Again, best practices for players: embrace danger, use your resources, tell the story, and discover your character. And again, the idea, come on, go away. Again, the idea of the hope and fear, especially the fear portion of it, is a great opportunity for the player to complicate the characters' lives. Yesterday, I talked about a dinner. You know, the players are hiding, and they go to an expensive dinner, or they basically barge into a very important dignitary's dinner or celebration or something, and a character could fail and the character could succeed or fail, but then they roll with fear, and the game master doesn't have to make guards jump in and arrest them. Maybe an NPC shows up from the player's background, the person who killed the people in their village, and they saw them kill their loved ones right in front of them when they were a child, and that person, now there's a perfect opportunity to introduce that character that wasn't planned, and now the character is now conflicted. Do I, murder kill them in the middle of this place because I hate them, because I'm out for vengeance, or do I stick with my allies, and does this person know I'm there? So, core gameplay loop. I'm going to get to your comments in just a minute. Step 1, set the scene. Oops, here we go. Ask and answer questions. and then build on the fiction. A lot of this like fiction keeps coming up, and the reason for that is it's like improv theater. So if you're an improv artist, the best practice for improv is you never say no, you add to the story. Now you can clarify something, like for example, someone could say, I thought your character was a noble, and then you can say, well, people presume that I am, but I'm not. I came from humble beginnings, right? Like there's a way to say no by saying like maybe people think that, or it's a mystery, or it's a myth in the fiction, but you very rarely say no to a thing as long as it fits the fiction in the first place. And then step 4 is go back to step 1, right? It's like when in doubt, go back to rule number 1. Spotlight. This is the big one. This is the one that has to do with the initiative. The spotlight is a symbol that represents the table's attention, and therefore the immediate focus of both the narrative and the game mechanics. Anytime a character or player becomes the focus of a scene, they are in the spotlight or have the spotlight. The spotlight moves around the table organically as scenes unfold unless a mechanical trigger determines where the spotlight goes next. For example, when a player fails an action roll, the mechanics prompt the GM to seize the spotlight and make a GM move. And that is why I was mentioning, and we'll talk about rolling the dice. Why rolling the dice just for no reason is not really a good idea, because it means if you keep giving the GM fear, they can just keep like, boom, interrupt, boom, interrupt, boom, interrupt. If you cling too tightly. Yeah. Gift of Gabby, hello there. All right, let's go to some of your comments here. Spook says, as I recall, they have modular settings. I think they pitched them as themes originally. Correct. They are called, oh man, my brain just farted. I can't remember. We're going to get to the end of it, but yeah, they are frameworks. Woo, I remember. Frameworks. They're called frameworks, Spook. And Spook, you shouldn't actually be here. You're a spy. Anyway, campaign frameworks are like a one-pager. It starts out with and I'll show you one of them. There's only one in the SRD, Witherwild. Anyway, the framework is a one-pager. So it gives you the elevator pitch, the concept of what's going on, any rules modification, and then basically, do we all agree this is what our campaign's going to be? Great. This is our campaign framework, and we move on. So a campaign framework can be as jovial or as dark as you like, as dangerous or as peaceful or whatever. How do you do it? I ask that every day. So hold on loosely, but don't let go. Kind of like that, yeah. Loosely. So loosely would be like the players are engaged in a heist to steal a known artifact from a noble's house. That's it, right? The details of how that happens are going to be modified by the die rolls, but all you need to know is the players are trying to break in. Now, do guards show up? Is there some mysticism? Is there a small child wakes up in the middle of the night and asks for like a glass of milk from one of the player characters because they're sleepy and they've got their blankie, and the player's like, sure, come to the kitchen, and without they're mouthing the words without saying it, they're like, what the fuck? Right? Yeah, that can happen. Yeah, the N King says modular settings, much like Savage Worlds. Yep, I used that system for a long time for many different campaigns. Like I said, Daggerheart doesn't. Yeah, Gift says. Gift says I haven't seen much about Daggerheart yet. Yet you like it so far. I very much do. And yes, the Daggerheart is intended to be modular, so you don't need to keep everything in the game just because it's in the book. And once again, I am using the SRD here, so you're not going to see any artwork or anything. And this is the free part. This is the free. This is the free. This is free. All right, so turn order and action economy. So here we have This is how initiative is done in the game. And the sneaky, the stealthy part of Daggerheart, which I love, it the way it's designed is kind of like, you look at it and you're like, this doesn't make any sense. And then my mind went, wait a minute, they're being real stealthy. So here it says Daggerheart's turns don't follow a traditional rigid format. There is no explicit initiative and mechanic, and characters don't have a set number of actions they can take or things they can do before the spotlight passes to someone else. A player with the spotlight describes what their character does, and the spotlight simply swings to whoever meets one of these three things. The spotlight simply swings to whoever the fiction would naturally turn it towards, hasn't had the focus in a while, or a triggered mechanic puts it on. So, you say to yourself, well, wait a minute, there's no initiative, and then you can just take as many turns as you want. This doesn't make any sense. How do you play the game? And here's the thing. This is why I love rules-light games. I said this before, and both rules-light games and narrative games is that these are BS detectors. People who like to play a-hole and BS protectors. People who are assholes and bullshit around a lot of games and are very purposefully or not tend towards expressing their extreme narcissistic tendencies. This kind of rule makes those people stand out like a sore thumb. Right? If you keep holding the spotlight, well, my character does this, and then does this, and wants to do this, and then does this, and then does that, and blah, 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 and everyone's sitting around twiddling their thumbs. It ain't about you. It's not. It's called a collaborative role-playing game. You want to do that, write a novel, right? If you just want to make it about you, there's plenty of body oils and Instagram baddies that you can go and play with yourself, right? This here is like, it takes the responsibility and puts it on the players, GM, and you as a player are like, oh shit, okay, wait, okay, so I want to be Billy Badass, but I also have to consider the people I'm playing with, but I also want to put the spotlight on me, but then I got to pass to somebody. Oh, that means I'm going to have to be gulp. I'm going to have to socialize with other people and pause my actions sometimes. And the answer to that is hell yeah. But there is some. Don't worry, don't get too stressed out, because there's a little bit more in here. So I'm going to show this to you here. This is an optional rule, and I'm going to tell you about this optional rule in Star Wars. This very much has to do with optional rule in Star Wars. Spotlight tracker tool. All right. So if your group prefers a more traditional action economy, you can use tokens to track how many times a player has had the spotlight. At the start of a session or scene, each player adds a certain number of tokens. We recommend 3. To their character sheet and removes a token each time they take an action. If the spotlight would swing to someone without any tokens, it swings to someone else instead. Once every player has used all their available tokens, players refill their character sheet with the same number of tokens as before, then continue playing. So what happens is, it sounds like initially, well, if it's about me and it's only about me and everybody take a back seat because I'm the most important, and they go, I spend 1, 2, 3 tokens because I want to do action. Okay, you could do that, and sure, a little bit selfish, but that's all right. But if you're playing with 4 other people, you could blow your load figuratively with these tokens by, okay, you take all 3 of your actions up front. Bad guy's not dead, haven't solved the problem, you're still deep in trouble, and I'm going to show you in a page or two why it is that you could take 3 actions you could take 3 actions, go Nova, and still not win. Okay, so you've done that, and you just ruined your own participation, because now you have to wait for 4 other players times 3 tokens times the game, all the game master's actions, and now you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs. But what you could do is take maybe one token or two, and remember, the game master is still in charge of the game, so the game master could say, all right, you come out of the shadows and you strike the guard. Boom, that's one action. All right, now what are you going to do? You've come out, you've exposed yourself, and you're surrounded by 5 other guards, and the player's like, yeah, I'm a badass. I'm going to look at all 5 guards and use my special ability to go into some kind of whirlwind attack and attack all 5 of the other guards. Great. Okay, you do this, roll dice, blah, 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 blah. And just before, and then you could, game master, you could do this. You could say, I'm not going to describe the outcome of this. I'm going to move over to another player who hears the action. And the other player's like, oh no, the guards are going to raise the alarm, blah, 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 and go back and forth, right? You can do this very cinematically. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because we're going to talk about Star Wars and Jedi. All right, let's go to your comments here. Gift of Gabby, hey. I'm only familiar with D&D 4E, 5E, Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and OSE. Wow, you're just in one family. Wow. So my TTRPG experience is limited. It's how would you call it? It's deep but limited. It's siloed. You're deep in the silo of like fantasy D20. Yes. Yeah, I agree with trying other systems. I do want to buy. Money is tight. I want to try Savage Worlds. First of all, do yourself a favor. Find some of these free. If you really want to try some things and you don't want to hurt your own feelings, basically spending money where you didn't want to, find free products when you can. And then if you like it, use your money. Let your money go where your mouth is, right? And then pay for it. Yeah, you could play these games for free. There's nothing, it's not illegal. They literally put it out there on their own. They did this on purpose. So yeah, do that. Blades in the Dark is free. All their rules are online. You can download them if you want, or just play it offline. I believe there's a relatively free Savage Worlds, or is it like there's a main book that's like $10 or something. Still got to pay for that. Mostly because my favorite setting is Eberron, has a Savage Worlds conversion. Eberron is great. Also have a Daggerheart, a magical girl TTRPG. Okay. Blade, what's the Forged in the Dark one? That's based off of Sailor Moon. I can't remember it. They have a version of that. You know what? We all on this corner of the interwebs, we all suffer from that. Yeah, no one wants to play with us either. Spook says it feels like at its core, it is designed to teach people live, play, improv. Yep, that's not a bad idea with how many people I know trying to run their games like they are Mercer and Mulligan. Yeah. It is trying to emulate the Mercer effect in the game, right? Because the people that are in Critical Role are voice actors, they're improv artists. It's trying to emulate that with the mechanics, and it's kind of cool. Yeah, exactly, NK. Exactly. I have never played, let alone GM, the Powered by the Apocalypse game. It's a very different mindset. It is very different. Sadly, the physical edition of Glitterhearts is no longer available. Okay, yeah, sometimes it's hard to find some of the physical copies of some of these great books just because of small press publishing. Yeah. Okay, so one of the foundational parts of Powered by the Apocalypse style games, or narrative games, or story games, or however you want to describe it, is to play to find out. And so the dice itself will tell you some of these things that are happening. So here we have making moves and taking action. And so of course we have ourselves at the very left, action rolls. Basically you you prepare to do something. What kind of action are you going to do? You roll the duality dice, and here is the duality dice. It's 2d12, and you add them together. All action rolls require a pair of 2d12s called duality dice. These are two visually distinct 12-sided dice with one die representing hope and the other representing fear. To make an action roll, you roll the duality dice, sum the results, apply any relevant modifiers, and compare the total to a difficulty number, just like 5th edition. Okay? And you can succeed with hope, succeed with fear. Today we're going to talk about failing with hope and failing forward, okay? And you can fail with hope, fail with fear, and have a critical success. So there's 5 different stages and of possibility when you roll the dice. So unlike most D20 games, there is no such thing as nothing happening. So in traditionally, I guess, or standardly in 5th edition, because you don't have to play it like this, but whatever. Standardly in 5th edition, if you have a difficulty of 18 and you roll a 15 with all your modifiers, you failed to do the thing. If you rolled 18 or above, you did the thing. That's it. It's pass-fail system. And while we can choose to describe things happening, the mechanics don't really tell you that you barely made it, you did it fully or whatever. In a D20 system, maybe psychologically we like to add that in there, but mechanically there is no difference between rolling 1 or 2 above or below the number, or rolling 8 above or below that number. But right here is a best practice, failing forward. All right, let's see. Come on. Here we go. In Daggerheart, every time you roll the dice, the scene changes in some way. There is no such thing as a roll where nothing happens, because the fiction constantly evolves based on the successes and failures of the characters. So what that means is, remember where I started? I said, players, it's not a good idea in this game to keep rolling. Perception check, roll the dice. Let me get my ASMR dice up here. It's not a good idea to roll again. Well, I roll again, I fail. Well, I'm going to roll again, because every time you roll, it's going to change the environment changes, the social dynamic changes, the pressure changes. And the reason it changes is because when you roll the 2d12s, if you're either hope is going to appear because the hope die is going to be higher, fear is going to happen, and you pass fear on to the game master, and because that die is higher, or you roll doubles and you get a critical success. And that means that every time a player grabs a dice and says, I make a perception check, roll, that means that there's a slightly less than 50% chance of handing the game master more fear, which means the game master can then interrupt the actions of the players more times, with more building tension, with more complications. So you don't want to do that. Here's another thing that happens in a game. The following steps describe in more detail a procedure for that all action rolls utilize. Pick an appropriate trait. Powered by the Apocalypse does this. Of course, Blades in the Dark, because it's a hyper hack of that system, and this game does it. There is no set roll your dex or use your charisma or make an acrobatics check in this game at all. What happens is you as a player, don't look at your character sheet, you just start saying, hey, I want to do this thing. And then you as a player and the game master can very quickly come up with an idea which trait is the best trait to describe what you're doing. One of the traditionally complicated things in tabletop role-playing games, and when I say traditional, it means that it can apply multiple ways, is moving through a crowd of people in a fantasy realm very quickly. So which stat involves moving through a crowd? Is it dex? Is it charisma? Right? Is it intimidation, or is it performance? Is it stealth, or is it diplomacy, right? Is it which stat is it? Strength and push through a crowd, right? Which one is it? And then the fiction, whatever your character is doing, dictates which trait that is. So just because there's something to be noticed in the background doesn't mean you grab the dice to roll for perception. No, you might roll for a particular stat. Maybe your character has some kind of streetwise skill called an experience. So then the game master can say, well, you have streetwise. Maybe it is perception in terms of noticing something, but maybe it's not something you see, but you feel. Or it deals with your character's background and it's something you would have noticed anyway. So instead of grabbing the dice, ASMR, here we go, grabbing the dice, the game master could just say, no, you were a street urchin, you grew up in the streets, you noticed this right away. And then that way you go, oh, okay, that basically gives you the spotlight, right? So because we can move the spotlight doesn't involve dice. The spotlight highlights a particular character. So here we go. You determine a difficulty. That's classic fifth edition isms. Very mechanical part, with difficulty 10, 12, 15, or whatever. Apply dice and modifiers. We've seen this in Dungeons and Dragons plenty of times. Same thing applies here. Then we're going to move to the next page down here. Then you roll the dice and resolve the outcome. And more likely than not, the player will either acquire or have some ability to spend or use hope, or you give the game master fear. And that's where I mentioned the other day. One of the great things is that the fear could be tokens or dice or something, and it's sitting in front of the game master, and the game master's like, no, I'm not going to use it yet. Now, mind you, if maybe sometimes you guys aren't very creative, and remember, you're supposed to collaborate together. So the game master might have 6 fear, 7 fear, 8 fear, 9 fear. And that building fear itself, even without using it, should start to make the players afraid, because the game master can use that fear to engage in or activate certain things that happen in the game. Basically, it gives the game master permission to, again, complicate your life, interrupt actions, make the adversary take actions, and use adversarial combat abilities, things like that. And right here, of course, we have the GM moves and adversary actions, but I'm going to go to what you guys have to say, because I can't see your comments. Here we go. Here we go. Good. I'm sorry, reading your comments here. Baby alert, be right back. I hear you. Gabby says, people are sometimes too hard to D20 fantasy systems, like it took me a long time to get to want to try other systems, because some people are overly enthusiastic about trying a non-D20 system or otherwise D&D. Yeah. I mean, I've been playing well over 45 years now, fantasy games and D20 games and role-playing games. So yeah. Gabby goes on to say, I get it. People want people to branch out, but there is a right way to do it. Yeah, you don't want to chastise people and like tell them they suck and your systems. Blah. And unfortunately, online conversations are like that. And it's weird, because it's like, how many fantasy D20 games I have? Shadow Dark and Knave are D20 games. Technically, they're Dungeons and Dragons too. And lots of people love those games. I love my Ultraviolet Grasslands. There's a ton of D20 games that I love, and I feel like they are. I love my ICRPG. Most recently, I was a contributing writer to Level Up Advanced 5th Edition from N-World, and that's another fantasy D20 game. Damn, I'm trying to think of some other ones I've got in the back that are more recent, rather than classic 5th Edition. and my brain's farting right now. But anyway, solo RPGs are a hot commodity now as well. You're so funny. You guys talked about music. Yeah. 11 different modulation effects. 4 of them even sound good. Yeah, so funny. All right, so Wander Home. And we talked about Thirsty Sword Lesbians on this channel. Yeah. TSL. Despite the name of Thirsty Sword Lesbians, which technically does describe kind of the setting of sorts, you don't need to be thirsty or have a sword or be lesbian to play the game, and you don't even have to play the game like that. And if I can very quickly, Thirsty Sword Lesbians uses emotional, psychological and emotional side effects and outcomes instead of physical harm like a regular TTRPG. Basically, that's what it does. It basically it replaces like wounded, bleeding, burning, choking. Maybe choking's in it. Bruised, battered. Instead, it replaces it with like guilt, anger, despondency, jealousy. It kind of replaces it with that. I mean, pretty much. Yep. Spook says there's some overlap with Modifius's 2D20 system for the GM with a token-based threat system. I'm good to see it's getting spread around. Isn't it called like momentum and threat? I think are the two positions. Players gain momentum. The game master uses threat, and it's kind of cool because there's nothing. First of all, this is a very common thing that happens in role-playing games all the time, where the game master, because I can hear some of you saying, well, as a game master, can I just make the bad guys do the bad guy thing? Can I just, make the landslide happen? Can't I just make the winter freeze come in? And yes, you could do all those things, and there's nothing stopping you from doing it. But what this game does is, by mechanizing fear in the game master's pocket or leaving it on the table and having those tokens sit there, it's a physical representation of what the game master has permission to do to the players, right? So if the game master in this game has like 9 fear saved up, by virtue of the game the way it's designed, Daggerheart, when the game master makes your life miserable by making reinforcements come in, and the dragon gets to breathe its breath weapon again, and the hobgoblins pile on the rabbit on the barbarian style character, and snipers, crossbow snipers appear at the top of the castle wall, and the players are like, damn it, oh man, oh I can't believe, oh more reinforcements? Seriously? You mean the creature grew another head? A third ooze seeps out of one of the broken canisters because we're fighting in his warehouse or something. When all these things keep happening and over and over, it makes it worse and worse and worse. The rules dictate in this game that the GM has permission to make it worse. And the players know that the fear's sitting there. They got 9 fear. Oh man, the game master's about to drop the hammer on us, and then maybe the game master spends fear after fear after fear. Now the game master has 3 fear, and the players go, maybe we should confront the big bad guy now, because the game master only has 3 fear to begin with, and might not crush us against, I don't know, the Medusa that we're about to fight, rather than 9 fear and going after the Medusa. You know what I mean? But anyway, GM moves and adversary actions. GMs also make moves. I don't really like the word moves, personally, but that's what they use. They should consider making a move when a player does one of the following things. Rolls with fear on an action roll. So when the players roll with fear on an action roll, go ahead and do something. Or they fail an action, or does something that would have consequences, or gives them a golden opportunity, or looks to them for what happens next. So all of these things, when the players, hey GM, do something when the players perform one of these things, when they start rolling dice, or when they don't roll dice. And then after the GM is done, spotlight goes back to the PCs. Pretty simple, right? And mind you, if you really wanted to make this a physical thing, you could have a physical, like, I don't know what you call totem of some sort at the table. Like the spotlight is literally, whoever has the spotlight, you hold this on. Now let me talk about Star Wars for just a minute. Star Wars has a very classic thing in it where a Jedi goes up against a Sith character or lord, or, red lightsaber versus good people's lightsaber. I don't care. And that storytelling, when we see that in a drama, meaning a movie or action movie, or we're reading it in a novel or something, very rarely, very, very rarely do other characters interrupt that action. So, Jedi or Padawan or whatever you want to call it, person draws lightsaber, they go up against the evil person with lightsaber, and a fight begins. And very rarely do we have our other characters, non-attuned characters, interrupt that action until the drama changes. And that's where when we go back to the initiative, the fact that it doesn't have an initiative system, you can let the spotlight rest on, I'm going to draw my blade and go up against the person who slew my village and my loved ones. And then the other players can sit back and go, yeah, this is kind of cool. They finally, we've been waiting for this moment. All right, I'm going to sit back and watch this. I want to sit back. I don't want to roll initiative. I want to sit back and see this happen. And then 1, 2, 3 actions. Okay, I'm going to move the spotlight. And you can actually go back and forth. I don't know. Hey, Adriana, you're going up against your hated enemy. Okay, roll some dice. All right, now you go, you move the spotlight to the other characters. All right, what do you do? Well, I'm going to fight the ogre. I'm going to rescue the prisoners, blah, blah, blah. Let's go back to Adriana again. All right, 1 action, 2 actions. You strike, you dodge, you parry. Okay, let's go back to the other characters. And like a movie, and you go back and forth. Your swords lock. Hey, Adriana, roll the dice. Your swords lock. I'll come back to you and talk about, the results of that, and then blah, blah, blah. Go back and forth. Here we talk about adversary actions. When play passes to the GM can make a GM move to spotlight an adversary. A spotlighted adversary can, and here it is, move within close range and make a standard attack, move within close range and use an adversary action, clear a condition, sprint far or very far away, or do anything else the fiction demands, or the GM deems appropriate, right? It's appropriate. This is theater of the mind ranges. So let's see if I can get this correct without paging through. Melee, very close, far, very far, and then out of range. So use the word very to differentiate. So it's melee, very close, far, very far, and then out of range. And I think how it works is melee is like grappling distance. You can touch a person without moving. Very close is like 5 feet. Close is 30. Far is like 30 to 100. Very far is 100 to 300. And then out of range. Generally. And then we'll get into hope and fear. And you know what? Let's skip past hope and fear. Let's talk about damage. And advantage, disadvantage. Yes. Advantage, disadvantage. You don't roll 2 dice and take the best one. Advantage, you roll a d6 and add it to your roll, and disadvantage is a d6 and you subtract it from your roll. That's it. I've already taught you that rule. Advantage, disadvantage. Lastly, I'm going to get to your comments, and then we're going to do hit points and hit point thresholds. Sneaky ass game designers on this one as well. All right, comments. Spook says, I'm a big fan of range as movement. Yep. And basically you can like sprint. Let's see. You can move one range band standard, sprint 2 range bands, and then there's other special abilities that let you skip range bands. Basically, like you can teleport up to very far or something like that, you know, in and out. I like the way your GM moves. Do, do, do. I hope that's the song you're thinking of there, N King. I like the way you move. Gift of Gabby says, I hate to say this, but some TTRPGs choose inaccessible fonts because I'm dyslexic and have other reading troubles, and it makes me irritated. You know what? That's something to absolutely positively consider with a game, and that could actually drive you away. Listen, I may claim that I don't have those issues, but I'm a person of a certain age who has to look through their eyeglasses in a certain way. There's some fonts in some games where I'm just like, what the damn it, you put light gray on a dark gray background, or like you decide to put white letters with a bright red page. Like, what the hell? Sometimes the game design can overtake the readability, and that's pretty horrible. Yeah. Pretty fonts may be pretty, but do not do no good if I can't read it. I agree with you there, Gab. I'm thinking of several reviews of TTRPGs. I saw the font and my eyes hurt looking at trying to read the page. There's some artistic, purposefully artistic things out there, and I get it, but the Yan King said, yep, I'm familiar with these ranges. Like I said, Daggerheart doesn't do something new. I think they admittedly brought together a bunch of things that have already existed in other tabletop role-playing games and brought them together. Yep, older games used to use like 8-point, 7-point fonts, like the super tiny. Oh my god, hurt your eyes. All right, stealthy. You guys know I like my stealthyisms. So hit points and damage thresholds. Players love rolling lots of dice. So in this game, there is nothing stopping players, and it's actually encouraged that there's a lot of things that allow players to roll lots of dice for damage. Here's the weird part, and I think this might confuse some of you as I describe this, but 70% Dungeons & Dragons player side, 70% narrative focus on the GM side. So here's how this works. When you pick up your dice and roll damage, this game uses something known as damage thresholds. So players receive minor, severe, and what the hell? So players can receive minor, major, and severe damage. And when you roll the dice, if you surpass the damage threshold, you will only take 1, 2, or 3 points of damage. I know that sounds strange. You're like, well, I rolled a 38 with all my dice. Why am I doing only 1, 2, or 3 points of damage? And that is because of the damage threshold matrix in the game. So most characters only will have between 3 to 6 hit points initially, and maybe you could spike up to 7 or 8. I believe at level 10, which is the game caps out at, I think 10 is your max, maybe 12. And most of your major monsters, almost all minor monsters can only take 1 or 2 points. Your highest level monsters are low double digits, 10, 12, 16. That's it for hit points. But here's the stealthy part. Player facing, you get to roll tons of dice. But on the game master side, you don't even need to add up anything. All you need to know is, did they surpass 1 damage threshold or 2 damage thresholds? So if you strike someone and you do a minor point of damage, you just mark 1 hit point. Here, right, it says, if the final damage is below the character's major damage threshold, they mark 1 hit point. If the final damage is at or above the character's major damage threshold, but below their severe damage threshold, they mark 2 hit points. And then if the final damage is at or above the character's severe damage threshold, mark 3 hit points. And then how armor works is armor reduces the damage down from severe to major to basically minor. And then if minor is reduced down, reduced to 0, then no hit point damage is marked. So basically you have a minor, medium, major damage threshold. And then here it says if optional massive damage rule, if a character ever takes damage equal to twice their severe threshold, they mark 4 hit points instead. So, for example, you might have a damage threshold that says 714. So you're wearing armor, and it says, let me see if I can find something here. I'm going to have to go to an adversary. So, actually, I'm at a good point. So your damage threshold might be 714, and you're wearing like chainmail armor or plate mail armor or something like that. So if the character receives damage that's below 7, they take 1 hit point. If it's between 7 and 14, they take 2 hit points. If it's above 14, they take 3 hit points. So players might feel really good rolling lots of dice, but as a game master, all you're concerned about is the damage threshold. Very, very weird, but unique way of doing that. It's very odd, but it's really cool. Al-Qadim. Yep. What's the trigger books are everyone is chat reading? I'm not sure. You mean which books trigger people? Is that what you're saying? Preparing a game to run a game for my parents' sister and sister's wife. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right, Gift. Now, here we are. Oh, the typos and things like that. Yeah, that happens. That's because the hidden art of being a great editor is not, the praises aren't sung in our community. If you design a game book, you really need a good editor. So these are GM moves, and absolutely positively, you should be doing these things when the GM has fear. And like I said, it's about complicating the life of the players. It's not about hitting them hard. It's about making the world grow. And when you as a game master get that fear from the players rolling dice, this is where you say, hold on, but very gently. This is where you start to grow the world in and around them without having to prepare any of this stuff. So remember today, I was talking about failure with fear, so we're going to go over to the left in a minute. But here, example GM moves. Show how the world reacts, or ask a question and build on the answer. Make an NPC act in accordance with their motive. Drive a PC to take action by dangling their goals in front of them. Signal an imminent off-screen threat. And remember what I said before, right? The players go to the dinner, and the player rolls with fear, and then you go, I'm going to dangle. Here we go. Drive a PC to take action by dangling their goals in front of them. Maybe they want to take vengeance on someone that hurt them or their family or whatever. and you dangle that threat, and you dangle it right in front of them. They're at the dinner party too. Now what you going to do? This person may not notice them, right? But you throw that in there. You weren't planning on that happening, but they rolled with fear, and you went, that would be awesome if their greatest enemy showed up in a sissy frill shirt and a champagne flute or something, right? Signal an imminent off-screen threat. Reveal an unwelcome truth or unexpected danger. That's where you start to build the danger in the background. Force the group to split up. Funny about, don't split the party, but, that's a thing. Make a PC mark stress. Other than hit points, the characters do have something known as stress. Stress is like the other white meat. It's like, it's players are going to have to juggle how much hope they have, their hit points, their stress level, and then their armor. But armor and hit points kind of go together because players can choose whether their armor reduces damage. It's not automatic. You get to make that choice. Especially if like the troll rolls very low and the player goes, you know what? I'm not going to use my armor on that one. I'll just take the 1 hit point. Right? I've got 4 hit points. I take the 1, but as the game master, you rolled really low, but the next swipe by the troll might really hurt me, and I want to save up my armor for that severe attack or something. Here's another odd one. Make a move the characters don't see. As a game master, you can do a cutscene to a point in time. Like, let's say you have that dinner, and in a room the players don't see, the Baron opens up a book, and a dark mist flows out of the book, and 2 red eyes speak to the Baron. Now the players don't see that, right? They don't know that's happening, but the players know it's happening. And yes, there is some metagaming in part of this, right? Because the players might go, I think we should go upstairs, where the Baron is with the Book of Vile Darkness or whatever, right? But as a game master, you're like, I know you're going to do that. That's why I said it, right? That's why I mentioned it. Show the collateral damage. Hey, remember that fireball you did? Yeah, now the place is on fire. Clear an adversary's condition. Maybe adversary was paralyzed or knocked out or intimidated or choking or tangled or something, and they get to clear that condition. Shift the environment. Snowfalls, rain, thunderstorms. The gears in the clockwork tower start to grind together. The sewer system begins to flood. The sandstorm moves in and you're blinded. The whirlwind lifts up loose papers and snatches something out of someone's hand. Blah, blah, blah. Shift the environment. Spotlight an adversary. All right, now it's their turn. You don't roll initiative. So how do the bad guys go? Spend fear. Capture someone or something important. Use a PC's backstory against them. Take away an opportunity permanently. And again, this is where you as the game master make the life hard for the players. Oh, you wanted to jump across the rickety rope bridge? Scramble across the rickety rope bridge? Well, guess what? I'm going to use that fear. The rope snaps. The bridge is gone. Now what? Now you're split in half. The boat you were trying to jump on is too far away from the shore. The agent you were trying to exchange information with slips away into the crowd. The small child that pickpocketed you, that you ignored, disappears into an alley, right? Take away an opportunity. So those are kind of things. Over here, failure with hope. On a failure with hope, you describe how the PC fails to get what they want, then make a GM move to introduce a minor consequence, complication, or cost, such as an adversary attacks, the PC marks a stress. That's basically if you don't know what to do, just have the PC mark stress. Introduce a new threat or raise the stakes of the conflict. And so something like failure with fear could be something like, let's see, in combat, you miss the opponent, but your axe grabs onto your opponent's shield and it rips out of your hand. The opponent, you miss the opponent, but they step back and stand inside of a tangle of chains or ropes. and someone goes, "Oh, I can grab the rope and make them trip," kick the anchor off the side of the boat or something. This is where maybe the enemy doesn't realize that they've moved back to the edge of a cliff, or you failed, but there's a little bit of hope. And using the words hope and fear can actually be literal, like there's actual hope and fear, or you can use the hope fear part of it as like a guide as to manipulating the upbeats and downbeats of what's happening. I'm going to go to Witherhome and show you how there isn't adversaries. Come on, Witherhome. These are all the monsters. Sorry, paging. This is what a monster stat block looks like. And then go to Witherhome. We'll do monsters tomorrow. We'll do that tomorrow. Okay. Yeah, I know. There we go. Tier battles. And yes. Monsters, come on. Why didn't I? Here it is. Why didn't I bookmark it? Witherwild. There it is, Witherwild. Sorry about that. And then we'll get out of here. Oh, you're all right there, Shice. You're quite all right. You're quite all right. All right. So, what setting is Daggerheart? Well, it's whatever setting you want. So, this is an example of and how you make a framework. And campaign frames are made up of different parts. So, and we've seen this before. They just happen to write this down. So oops. This is what it is. To the very left, we have a pitch. Each campaign frame includes the following sections: a pitch to present to the players, suggestions and guidance on tone, feel, themes, and touchstones, an overview of the campaign's background, guidance for fitting communities, ancestries, and classes into the setting, principles for players and GMs to focus on during the campaign, unique setting distinctions, an inciting incident to launch the campaign, special mechanics to use during the campaign, and questions to consider during session 0. And lastly, you can find each campaign frame map in the appendix of the core book, or go to daggerheart.com/downloads. And so you could just make up your own framework, right? So here we have Witherwild, and Witherwild, here's the pitch. When an invading nation attacks an ancient forest deity, a virulent overgrowth spreads throughout the land. Okay, complexity rating 1 dot. And then we have like the pitch. Read this section to your players, and it's a couple of sentences, right? Fanewick was once a place of great abundance and peace, dangerous to those unfamiliar with the land, but a cornucopia to those who respected its ways. When Haven invaded the wilds and forced the land into eternal spring, a dangerous bloom known as the Witherwild took hold and now threatens the lives of all who live there. In a Witherwild campaign, you'll play unlikely heroes from humble beginnings who are reckoning with their newfound duty to save Fanewick's people from dangerous corruption. That's it. And then you have tone and feel with a bunch of like words, right? Adventurous, dynamic, epic, heroic, thrilling, uncanny, whimsical. We have some themes: cultural clash, ends justify means, grief, people versus nature, transformation and change, and survival. And then some touchstones: Princess Mononoke, The Legend of Zelda, The Dark Crystal, Nausea in the Valley of the Wind. Sorry. Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind. I'm just joking. We used to call it nausea. Like, anyway, and then there's an overview of of Fanewick and Haven, and then we go into like communities and things like that. Sicknesses, some rules changes, great people, places, and things that might be important, and you're done. Right? So anyway, guys, thank you very much for being part of the show. This is more of the GM section where you talk about how people fit into the Witherwild and things like that, and then some GM practices, things like that. Talks about classes. Do you want to limit how many classes there are? What kind of ancestries they have? What are some rules? Like maybe there might be a house rule for corruption, a house rule for wild magic, a house rule for assassination. Maybe there's a house rule for renown or honor, for an honor system, or saving face, or something like that. So, yep. Goes into how you want to, it basically, these are details about the Witherwild, and you can use those as a basis for your own game and your own system. And then campaign mechanics, there's corruption from the Witherwild. Session 0 questions, inciting incident, NPCs, and then the appendix where we have the domain cards, and you can use these. It's like a card reference. Instead of using the cards, this is where the other information is written, and you can just reference that. You could print it out, I guess, for your players if you don't own or want to print out the cards or write it down on a character sheet constantly. These are basically spell cards, domain cards, the different domains, and it goes on blade domain, etc., so on and so forth. So anyway, guys, go all the way to the beginning of this document and then let you guys get out of here. So Spook says, I like to leave players with just enough hope. It rhymes with rope for a reason. Hell yeah. Yeah, players get to spend hope and GMs get to spend fear. And it's kind of it's a stealthy way of, again, getting the rise and fall when player and there are many things in the game where, like, if the GM has fear, you gain hope, or this monster will attack you, and also not only does it do hit point damage, it might cause you stress, or it drains your hope away from you. Like, I think a vampire drains hope. We'll get into monsters tomorrow, but there are monsters, and what I love about the game, Daggerheart, is I love multiple different vectors of threat. So classic Dungeons and Dragons, your vector of threat are hit points. Not much else can really threaten your character. There are very, very few monsters that go after your stats like strength or dexterity or constitution or intelligence, which I'm very surprised. Over like 40, 50 years of Dungeons and Dragons, we haven't seen more monsters do that. Very few monsters or adversaries go after spell slots in Dungeons and Dragons. There is no stress mechanic, so success and failure is based on how much damage I can do, how many hit points I have, or how many of those hit points I can keep and keep rejuvenating. But in Daggerheart, they don't like to hang around in and on me like they used to. They just don't do that anymore. I don't know why, but it's a classic catism, right? If I made them do it, they won't want to do it. So, yeah. But anyway, yeah, the players have to contend themselves with worrying about their hit points, how much armor they have, their stress, which they might have to spend for like magic and things like that, and how much hope they have. And so the game really thrums, I think, when there's enough hope and fear going back and forth, when the players are spending that hope, knowing that they're going to roll the dice and gain some more. The tension between, do we even want to roll the dice or not roll the dice? Being forced to roll the dice because they might give the game master, they're down to 3 fear. Do we really want to go into danger? Yeah, let's do it. So yeah, Spook. Yeah, have a great one. Thank you guys for being part of the show. I really appreciate it. And we'll continue to talk about what's tomorrow. Success with fear is tomorrow. So, guys, have a great one. Thank you very much for letting me introduce you to this game and some of its best practices. And basically, like Daggerheart did, it it borrowed. It's an homage to other games out there openly. And most of these best practices we can introduce in any other tabletop role playing game. There's nothing stopping us from doing that. I mean, you can have fear and hope tokens in Dungeons and Dragons. Roll a d20. Did you succeed? Great. Get a hope. Did you fail? That's a fear in my pocket, right? You could do that if you really wanted to. I don't know. It's very easy. If you roll 5 or more success, you gain a hope. If you roll 5 or less from the difficulty, I earn a fear as the dungeon master. You can very easily do that. So anyway, guys, have a great one. I'll see you later. Peace and tranquility. Bye.